a welcome into a long campaign in 2013. A poignant opportunity for us to say goodbye to 10 seniors, especially 8 of whom have already graduated. Those guys that entire group of guys have withstood a tremendous amount of change, a tremendous amount of needed accomplishment, and have provided everything that we've needed in this program. So, really proud to take those 10 guys with us down to Ogden, where we face a Weber State team that is reeling a lot like we were last year. So, some similarities between this game and last year. Hopefully, we can end the season on an uptick.
Mike, the BYU game, from your standpoint, from a physical standpoint, an injury standpoint, overall, how did you guys come out of it?
Well, first of all, the game was played over 3 hours, and there were about 15 minutes of those 3 hours that I wish we could have just called timeout, sat in the locker room and waited for the snow squall to go by. Because when your wide receivers from Southern California, Southern California, Florida, and Georgia, and your offensive linemen, all the guys that are warm weather state guys, they curled up into a little ball and said, "No, I don't want to play." And then one of the great coaching points of my career was when I called timeout, brought everybody over and said, "Hey, this is going to stay here all afternoon," and we went right back out through an interception that was returned for a touchdown. So sometimes you just have to laugh as you try, as a coaching staff, to propel your guys forward, and that's a head scratcher for me a little bit. But overall, it's the end of the season, 12 consecutive ball games without a bye-in, which is kind of the way I like it. We're a little wounded. We look for the return of a couple guys, though, this week, particularly Kurt Carstetter at outside linebacker. And that's really been a missing element for us because we have played woeful at a couple of the outside linebacker spots at times and haven't tackled very well. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see that in 2013, our defensive stats are led by an inside linebacker, Mitch Beckstead, who's really played pretty darn well. And then our number 2 and 3 tacklers are our safeties, which means that our front is still not as active as they need to be. And one of the hallmarks of us early in the season was that we noticed that a lot of our tackles were made by our front 7. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, we faced 3 ferociously good offenses: Portland State, Eastern Washington, and BYU. And our defensive front 7 in toto has not necessarily made a lot of plays. And we've got to get those guys more actively involved in Saturday's ball game, even though Weber State has, in this last game against Montana, showed that it really didn't want to run the ball. So, big challenge for us defensively to force Weber State to be one-dimensional, and hopefully our defense will respond, and Kurt Carstetter could be a big part of that.
Is that, Mike, if I could just do the follow-up, is that you say that your defensive front hasn't been as active the last 3 games. Is that fatigue, or is that simply because of who you were playing?
Well, I think it's a combination, Mark, of both. All 3 offenses are pretty good, but yet I feel like we've matured and become a lot better in our defense. Yet our defensive production in our front 7 group has got to get a lot better as the years go by, as time goes by. We cannot just be relying on our safeties. And the interesting point that we don't keep stats on is missed tackles, and maybe we should, because our safeties have 61 missed tackles this season, and that translated into Saturday into some home runs. Now, it's one thing to have your safeties be number 2 and 3 on the team in tackles if they're for sure tackles. But when they're misses, then where's everybody else, and where are the safeties? So we've got to prevent the long, big play, the cheap play on Saturday. I think that's the number 1 key to winning down at Ogden, is being able to prevent the long play.
You mentioned Weber State reeling, similar to how you guys were last year. Can you explain that a little more? What's been some of their problems, that sort of thing?
Well, they've had a turnover-rated quarterback, a mortality rate, if you want to say it that way. They haven't been able to effectively run the ball. They haven't protected the passer especially well, and they haven't caught the ball and run with the ball as well as they have in years past. I mean, the program has slid a little bit, and part of it is due to the APR. It cuts back on your ability to A, recruit, and B, be able to pay attention to what's going on with your team. And their APR situation was similar to our APR situation, and it's something that takes a long time to fix, a long time to wrap your arms around, and eventually it denigrates or degrades a program to in a long-term event. So I think the whole concept of APR is probably needed, yet the long-term effects of APR struggles by the schools that have had APR struggles is something that dogs you it's a 10-year dog, and it'll be a while yet for Weber State, even ourselves, to continue to dig ourselves out of that APR hole.
How much do you think their dalliance with John L. Smith hurt that program?
I have no idea. Jerry, I really can't. I really can't tell you. I just know that by the time Coach McBride was winding down, Weber State was they were still in academic disarray. And I don't know if John L. coming in for a couple weeks or months or whatever he was there, and then Jody taking over as an interim coach. I don't know if that's had as big impact as the APR struggles that they struggled with their last coaching staff before John L. was named the head coach.
You look at them and you look at your team now. Do you see progress in your team? I mean, is it nice to look back and be like, man, I'm glad we're not in that situation as much right now?
Well, we're trying to rise, and I think, without respect to Weber State, we're lifting off. We just can't play well yet in games. I mean, this year we've only led one team in one half in one game in 34 that I've coached here. So the game day performance is really kind of how we're all measured here. Is such a subset of everything else that's happened below or out of sight of the program that I'm pretty proud of. That will allow us on game day to be much more beneficial in the future. So we've got still some performance hurdles to overcome, whereas the off-field quotients of what we are is taken care of. I'm pretty proud that we've got that kind of foundation. It's just game day now we've got to play, and this takes us back to Saturday. Our ability to be able to prevent the long play and avoid the catastrophic turnover, I think, will be just a very, very key part about our ability to be able to win the game.
For the last time, last year's game, now I get to compare to last
That's
year.
great. No, we'll say 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. I might be putting words in some other people's mouth. I felt like Weber State came in here and was very disrespectful, you use circus-like with Portland State, but it was a party on that sideline, and how do we pile it on Weber State?
Weber State bullied us because they could. And it's kind of, in 2013 here, we're talking about bullying as being something it's kind of a watchword and everything, education, sports, everything. And we got bullied. And in sports, you're going to get bullied when the other team can bully you. And we got bullied because they could. I don't think they'll be able to this year. So it'll be a lot of fun for, not retribution or payback, but just be able to bully back.
Is this the first time you really felt like you should win the game?
I'm not quite there yet. Given Matt how we've played defensively over the last 3 weeks. I mean, again, if you go back over the last 3 weeks and you start looking at yards per play, long plays for touchdowns, you go, whoa, now wait a minute now. Have we really solved what the ills were in 2012? I think we have. Last year we surrendered 72 touchdowns, and I think we're at 41 or 42 this year. So unless they score 29 touchdowns on Saturday in game 12, we will have accomplished what we set out to do, which is improve our defense. But the main thing is, I feel like, maybe we have an upper hand, especially on offense, where we have just continued a steady, gradual growth. And, and I think there's kind of a quiet little story behind the scenes here. And it's a friendly story. It's a good story. On our offensive coaching staff, of course, Coach Don Bailey's run our offense. And I'm the guy that is the pass crazy guy. I'm the guy that says, throw it. Coach Bailey's always been, okay, I'll throw it, but we're going to have to run the ball eventually. And he's the guy that, despite my protestations, has allowed us, enabled us to develop a running game. And I think the one thing that was cool for us on Saturday against BYU was, regardless of who we were playing or when we were playing, we were running the ball against BYU early. We ran the ball in the third quarter when they subbed their entire starting defense except for Kyle Van Noy back in on a touchdown drive. So our ability to be multifaceted on offense is a result of Don Bailey's dogged determination that we would have a little bit better feel for how we ran our offense with running the ball. And obviously, I'm not disappointed, but every time we run the ball, a little bit of me just goes, oh, really? Oh, okay, first down. Yeah, I guess we'll take it.
Is it a rivalry with Weber State?
Well, no, it's not a rivalry when you've been beat 10 years in a row. It's a beatdown. I don't think you would call Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes a rivalry unless one of them had won. Nobody ever says Chuck Wepner was a rival of Muhammad Ali. So, no, it's not a rivalry yet. We'd like to think it could become something really special, a lot of fun for the fans in the area. As we rise our program, and hopefully Weber State can rise their program, it'd be fun to have this game mean everything for the Big Sky Conference title. And of course, if you look back, and I'm going to go all the way back to the last time that we won, in 2000, in the Weber State game, in 2003, the defeat of Idaho State by Weber State literally cost that season. And so I think I look back and where this thing can go from here. It's pretty exciting to look down the road and find out that, as both schools settle themselves down APR-wise and build their programs and rise, this thing we could be to have the same inclination on this Saturday that they'll have up in Bozeman, Montana.
Go back to towards the end of the BYU game. You guys get a third quarter touchdown. You keep pressing the issue. You keep running the ball, especially with Daniel McSturdy. What kind of confidence will that give you heading into Weber State game?
Well, I just think it gave us a lot of confidence in a lot of areas. Our offensive front knocked those guys off the ball, and Danny ran the ball better than he's run ever since I've seen him, since we've been here. And not only that, Aaron Pryor had some nice runs, and we were able to put a cloak on Xavier Finney and hold him till Saturday. So a lot of good things. 3 running backs now that are playing exceptionally well. Can all be bullets in the chamber and ready to roll on Saturday.
You planning on using Daniel a little bit more, or about the same?
I think we'll use all 3 of them in various amounts. Although Xavier Finney is our number 1 guy, as long as he's rolling, he'll stay on the field. And those other guys will get their times when their time comes.
I hate to bring this up again, but dropped passes, BYU game. Was that the weather? Was that?
I just think sometimes. Well, first of all, after all the passes I caught in my career, I'm going to talk a little bit about something maybe I don't really know anything about. And I think even though I've authored, been the author as a head coach of a lot of passes and a lot of catches and a lot of drops, Saturday was a really kind of a first for me to see your premier player lose 5 in a row before he catches 1. Boy, that's a slump. But and that's why I don't think we'll see a repeat performance from Luke like that again. And Luke will be really, I think he'll be the tip of the spear on Saturday, because he's the guy running in the middle. He's not going to end his career, a 3-year starting career. It's had many, many highlights on a down note. I think he'll play great, and I can see it in his face. I can see it the way he's playing this week.
You recruit against Weber State. How big is this game in recruiting terms, or is it?
We never ever see them on the road. We never see them. They're a little bit in Idaho. There are guys in Idaho that we're not recruiting. This coaching staff and that coaching staff, we recruit different people.
Anything else?